So I wanted to do an update on the garden and how it's doing after the cold winter we had where it got down to minus 11 Celsius. It is now August 5th, and anything that is going to recover has recovered. Anything that was going to die has died. So I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update on some of the plants in the garden. First thing I wanted to show our front bank here. It's looking pretty nice with all the lavender out and the heather and some of the euphorbia in the front, daisies, some foxgloves. As you can see here, I have a Yucca rostrata that I planted last year. It's been kind of struggling, but it did survive the winter. No obvious damage to it. I do want to transplant it because it's getting kind of smothered here amongst the daisies. But the rostrata did pretty good. The older they were, the better they fared. I had a few small rostrata that unfortunately did not make the winter. But there's one over here that I was looking at the other day. And it actually, this is one that died. But if you look at it closely, you'll see there's a little small guy coming up from the roots right here. So that's pretty exciting. And it shows you the resiliency of plants. Never give up. I give them some time. These are some Yucca gloriosa variegatas. These guys, they were fine in terms of cold, but the wet kind of got to them and they had a whole bunch of fungus issues. So I really trimmed back the lower leaves on them and kind of gave them a haircut. So as you can see, they're trimmed up pretty high and they're starting to bring out some new growth. So they should be fine going forward. And the minus 11 Celsius cold totally unfazed them, but the wet certainly did have an effect. This is my Camerops humulus cerifera, and oh boy, what can I tell you about this? In terms of cold, minus 11 is not too bad for them, but the wet combined with the cold unfortunately did this one in, and you can see the main stalk completely rotted out. But the side shoots, the offshoots are fine, and they're actually sending out new growth, which is cool. So they're supposedly more cold hardy than humulus, the regular green form, which is true for a dry cold, but for a wet cold, unfortunately, they are still susceptible to damage. And out of the 3 Camerops humulus that I have in the garden, all 3 died from this winter. So I won't be planting any more of those in the garden. Here's a Yucca rostrata. This is actually a tri-head, so it's got 3 growth points on it. And totally fine from the winter. I did cut back some damaged leaflets on the bottom, but it's looking pretty good. Here's a needle palm. Unfortunately, same thing happened as needle palm. The main trunk died back with rot, and the offshoots are growing just fine. And again, same issue, wet cold. The cold's not an issue, it's the wet cold. So this is a Phormium, New Zealand flax, and this died back quite a bit, had a lot of cold damage, but it is shooting back some new growth from the outside, which is nice to see. They're actually quite expensive if you want to replace one of these. In general, the Phormium in Vancouver suffered a lot of damage, and a lot of them died completely. Here where we are in Bowen Island, we're in zone 8B. I used to think it was /9A, but after this winter, I'm sticking more to 8B on it. They fared a bit better. So I have a few Phormiums in the yard, and they are coming back slowly. The tracheocarpus fortunei I have 2 large ones in the yard, and they are fine. There was a bit of damage from wind and from cold to the leaflets, to the fronds. But as you can see, this one's shooting up some new growth. So it is alive and it is thriving. So tracheocarpus fortunei are by far the best palms for a wet, cool climate, temperate climate like we have here in British Columbia, Canada. And this last winter, some parts of Vancouver got down to minus 15 Celsius, and those tracheocarpus fortunei are just fine. And again, size matters, so the bigger they are, the more likely they are to survive. So there were some deaths in smaller, less established specimens. So here's where I had the Camerops humilis planted, and of course it died. And now we have a tracheocarpus fortunei in its spot because those survive. So that's why I planted for now. May change it in the future. This is a Yucca rigida blue sentry. It had a small rostrata there. It died. The blue sentry are totally unfazed after that winter, so that's what's growing there now. I also have another Yucca here. I forgot the name of this one. I think Yucca glauca or something like that. Anyways, this one did just fine over the winter. I was quite surprised. Then I planted a small Tracheocarpus wagnerianus in the spot where my Camerops cerifera was growing, and that one died as well in the winter. So this guy's just temporary here because he's going to eventually outgrow the spot, so it's more of a space filler for now. For here I have my beautiful Yucca rostrata, larger one, and this one was totally unfazed from the winter. It's looking beautiful. Look at it. No problems with the cold, no problems with the wet. So when they're established, they're a lot more resilient to that. Got some, that's a agave, some more Yucca blue sentry here. I had a cordyline australis here. Fortunately, that didn't make it as well. In fact, most of the cordyline around British Columbia died, including in Sydney, Victoria. It's quite sad. They had some really mature cordyline australis there, and they all died completely. They're growing up from the roots. This eucalyptus made it no problem. Trying to remember the name of that eucalyptus. Niphophila pusilliflora, I believe. It's one of the more cold hardy eucalyptus. No problems with that one. These color guard yuccas also did fine. And this phormium's coming back, which is nice. That got damaged somewhat from the cold. Magnolia, evergreen magnolia, Cape Harris, no problems with that one. So these are the remains of my Dicksonia antarctica. I can never say that word. Tasmanian tree fern. Unfortunately, it may have died from this winter. I don't know. It hasn't shot up any new fronds, and this is now August, so it's not looking good for it. Quite surprised. It actually died back because I had it somewhat protected under a tarp and a blanket, so it should have been enough for it to survive the winter. But as you can see, there it is. I had a smaller specimen planted somewhere else that I just put leaves on, and that one is fine. So I'm not sure what to say about these. Larger tree ferns in town did suffer damage, but they all came back in the spring, shooting up new fronds. So if this one is completely dead, which I'll dig it up, I'll put it in a pot for now, and I think I'll plant another one in its spot because I really do love them. Try and get a larger specimen because they're super slow growing. And as you can see, this one's already got a few inches of trunk, so Actually quite a bit, almost a foot of trunk. So it's really depressing that it may have died on me. So my hardy avocados that were in the greenhouse during the winter, they're blooming for me, but still no fruit. So I'm gonna give them another year. Maybe try some hand pollination, because they tend to bloom quite early when there's not a lot of pollinators out. This is one of my brugmansias. Okay guys, continuing the tour here on the deck. I have my collection of agaves here. These guys I store inside the greenhouse over the winter, so they do just fine. I don't actually water them during the winter, so it just goes to show you how good they are about drought resistance. Here I have my cycad, Cycas revoluta. As you can see, it's got new flush of fronds here. Beautiful plant. I keep this one outside most of the winter. I brought it in during the minus 10 Celsius weather we had, but normally it's outside even if it gets below zero. It just does fine. It's Australian tree fern right here. It's doing quite well. Over here we got some succulents, type of rhodo, some feijoa or pineapple guava. Over here we got a lotus banana that is actually going to go to flower. So as you can see here, the leaves are slowly getting smaller as they push out. See that? And this one's really small. And then the next one will probably be the bloom shoot, and it's going to have a beautiful yellow flower kind of central to the stalk. It's really unique for a banana. And these are all the pups around it. This guy also I leave out most of the winter, believe it or not. It's actually quite equally hardy to a Musa baju, or a hardy fiber banana. But I do put it in the greenhouse occasionally when if it gets really cold outside, because it is in a pot. Okay, I got my cannas there. Got a pointail palm, mangave here, variegated bougainvillea. These are all in the greenhouse during the winter. This is a brugmansia, variegated, called Maya. Just putting out a beautiful flush of flowers right now. It smells amazing during the evening. Orcanas. This is my red obsidian banana. This guy I overwintered in the greenhouse, just in a pot. Didn't water it at all. It actually has plenty of water in the stalk to get it through the winter. And I was going to plant it out in the garden, but I decided to just keep it in a pot for this year. So that's what it's doing on the balcony. Over here I have the hybrid Jubea chilensis Butiaite cross, and that's in a pot. It's doing quite well. This was also out most of the winter. I only brought it in during the crazy cold spell we had. Otherwise it's quite hardy. I'd say even more hardy than the pure Jubea chilensis. Here's another brugmansia. This is a double called Dolas Gold Trumpet. That's the bloom. And it smells amazing, just beautiful. My daughter's little succulent garden, Brahea armata, also mostly outside for the winter, but I keep it under the overhang of the house in a pot. I bring it inside the greenhouse if it gets below -5 Celsius. So this is the tracheocarpus manipur I had planted out. I actually got it last year, and I planted it into the ground for the first year. And of course, we had the worst winter in about 15 to 20 years. So it looked like hell. I thought I lost it. I dug it up, I put it in this pot thinking, you know, it may recover, it may not. And then look at this, it's back. It's shooting out new fronds and it looks great. And I pretty much know now these are not as hardy as Tracheocarpus fortunei, but they are, I'd say, more hardy than a Camrops humilis, the green form. And they will, I think as they mature and get older, they actually get more hardy. So for now, I'm going to keep it in this pot, let it grow up a bit, and then may plant it again in the garden.